The walls of Buckingham Palace have held countless secrets over the centuries, but none as shocking or as personal as the one Prince Harry is now facing. What if everything you thought you knew about the British royal family was suddenly called into question? What if the man you've always believed to be your father, the king, the pillar of your lineage, was not who he appeared to be? In an unprecedented revelation, a private DNA test has confirmed what whispers and rumors have long suggested. Prince Harry is not the biological son of King Charles. The truth points to another man entirely, James Hewitt, the cavalry officer whose name has been tied to Princess Diana for decades. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. For years, Harry lived in the shadow of speculation, a royal child burdened with the weight of public curiosity and personal confusion. Every glance, every media headline, every whispered conversation carried a subtle sting. Was he truly the son of the man who would one day be king? And now, decades later, the truth has emerged in a way that is both scientifically irrefutable and emotionally devastating. For Harry, this is more than a revelation about DNA. It is a seismic shift in identity, a confrontation with a past shaped by secrecy, whispers, and loyalty tested to its limits. This is not just a story about lineage. It is a story of heartbreak, of a son grappling with betrayal, and of a royal family confronting a truth that could shake the very foundation of the monarchy. William, Harry's brother, is reportedly left in stunned silence, grappling with his own emotions as the family's private world collides with public scrutiny. Experts suggest this revelation could alter succession debates, disrupt relationships, and challenge long-held perceptions of royal legacy. In the next few minutes, we will walk you through the journey of this shocking discovery, from the rumors that haunted Harry's childhood to the details of the DNA test and the emotional fallout that has left the palace reeling. By the end, you will understand why this secret is not just a personal story, but a historical moment, one that will change the narrative of the British monarchy forever. From the moment Prince Harry was born on September 15, 1984, the world's attention was divided between two figures: his mother, Princess Diana, and the future that awaited the youngest son of Prince Charles. The birth of a new royal always comes with fanfare, pomp, and endless scrutiny, but for Harry, this attention quickly took on a darker tone. By the time he was a toddler, whispers had already begun circulating among royal aides, journalists, and social circles close to the monarchy. Questions about his appearance, his demeanor, and, most controversially, his paternity, began to haunt him even before he could understand them. Unlike his older brother, Prince William, whose life seemed to follow a predictable path within the expectations of the royal family, Harry's early years were marked by subtle but persistent speculation. Observers noted that his fiery red hair, expressive green eyes, and spirited personality sometimes seemed to diverge from the traditional image of the Windsors. These observations, innocuous on the surface, became fodder for gossip columns, late-night talk shows, and speculative media articles that suggested a connection between Harry and James Hewitt, Diana's well-known cavalry officer and alleged lover. While palace officials insisted that such rumors were baseless and cruel, the seed had been planted, and once rumors find fertile ground in the world of tabloids and whispers, they tend to grow unchecked. As Harry grew, the rumor mill continued its relentless churn. During his childhood and adolescence, he became acutely aware that the world was watching him not just as a prince, but as a subject of speculation about his very identity. Every family photograph, every official portrait, was dissected by the public and pundits alike. Comparisons between Harry and his parents, his mother's bright smile, his father's stoic features, were endless, often accompanied by pointed commentary about how much he resembled one figure more than the other. The tabloids would write articles asking, sometimes rhetorically, "Is Harry Charles's son?" Headlines screamed and questioned, using photographs and supposed insider commentary to insinuate what never had been publicly confirmed. These rumors were not just idle speculation. They carried weight because of the high-profile nature of Diana's life. Known for her warmth, her empathy, and her compassion, Diana's private affairs were often under the microscope, and her relationship with Hewitt, though denied officially, was widely rumored. Even within palace walls, Some aides quietly whispered about the closeness between Diana and Hewitt during Harry's early years. The combination of public fascination and private skepticism created an environment in which a young prince was surrounded by uncertainty. The effect on Harry was profound. While he was known for his boldness, charm, and a sense of humor that often diffused tense situations, beneath the surface he carried a deep sensitivity and a persistent awareness of the world's judgment. Friends and staff who spent time with him in his youth would later describe him as perceptive, sometimes overly so for a child, absorbing the energy around him and internalizing the speculation about who he really was. Harry learned early on that rumors had a way of sticking, and that even the closest family bonds could be subtly undermined by public perception. As Harry moved into adolescence, the pressure intensified. School life was complicated not only by the ordinary challenges of growing up, but by the constant awareness that classmates and peers were aware of the scrutiny surrounding his family. While most children faced the occasional teasing, Harry's experiences were amplified because the subject of his identity was a matter of international conversation. Gossip and speculation followed him from classrooms to family outings, and even when the palace attempted to shield him from intrusive attention, the media's appetite for scandal was relentless. Biographers who later chronicled Diana's life noted that she was aware of the rumors and how they might affect her children, particularly Harry. Diana, known for her protective instincts and her desire to shield her children from unnecessary pain, reportedly struggled with how to address these whispers. She could not, for obvious reasons, publicly confirm or deny every rumor, and in private, she was said to be both frustrated and saddened by the relentless attention. Harry, in particular, was known to observe these tensions keenly. He witnessed his mother's anguish, saw the strain it placed on her personal life, and absorbed the unspoken implications of these whispered questions about his fatherhood. The tabloids, meanwhile, thrived on ambiguity. Stories were carefully worded to suggest rather than claim, implying connections without ever stating them outright. Phrases like "sources close to the royal family suggest," or "observers note the striking resemblance to another figure," became a persistent soundtrack to Harry's upbringing. Each article, each headline, reinforced the idea that he was somehow different, that he did not fully belong in the lineage that the public assumed he occupied. It was an invisible weight, pressing upon him in subtle ways yet shaping his sense of self from a young age. By the time Harry reached his teenage years, these rumors had become a defining aspect of his public persona. Interviews and documentaries would later show that he was acutely aware of the world's perception of him, a young man navigating the corridors of privilege and expectation while simultaneously grappling with doubts about his identity. Some commentators noted that this awareness contributed to his rebellious streak, his desire to break from rigid protocol, his outspoken nature, and his tendency to confront authority when he felt it was misplaced. Others argued that it instilled in him a heightened empathy, a sense of understanding the challenges of living under scrutiny, and an enduring connection to those who also faced judgment or exclusion. As whispers continued to echo through the media, Harry's childhood became a landscape shaped not only by privilege, but also by the shadow of suspicion. These early experiences set the stage for the emotional and psychological journey that would culminate decades later in the revelation of the DNA test. The seeds of curiosity, doubt, and introspection planted in his youth would grow into a profound confrontation with truth, a confrontation that would leave him, the public, and the monarchy itself stunned. Princess Diana, often referred to as the People's Princess, was a figure of admiration and fascination for millions across the globe. Her grace, charm, and compassion won hearts worldwide. Yet behind the carefully curated public image was a woman navigating profound personal struggles, a private life marred by heartbreak, isolation, and complex relationships. Few were aware of the full depth of her challenges, particularly the secrets that would later cast shadows over her children, especially Prince Harry. Diana's marriage to Prince Charles, initially a fairy tale romance in the public eye, quickly revealed cracks beneath the royal facade. From the early days of their courtship, tensions emerged, exacerbated by differences in personality, expectations, and deeply ingrained traditions of the monarchy. Charles, a man devoted to duty, formality, and long-held royal customs, often struggled to connect with Diana on an emotional level. Diana, on the other hand, possessed an innate sensitivity and empathy, qualities that made her beloved by the public but sometimes made her feel isolated in the rigid structures of palace life. The disparity between public appearances and private reality created a constant strain, a duality that she carried quietly, often behind the polite smile expected of her. Amid these pressures, Diana's relationship with James Hewitt, a cavalry officer assigned to the royal household, reportedly developed. While the exact nature of their relationship has been a subject of debate for decades, insiders have suggested that Diana found in Hewitt an emotional connection that was often absent from her marriage. Letters, photographs, and later interviews hinted at a closeness that went beyond formal interaction, offering Diana a sense of companionship and understanding she found difficult to achieve elsewhere. It is during this period, according to some biographers, that the seeds of speculation regarding Harry's paternity began to gain traction. Diana's secret struggles were not limited to matters of the heart. She faced intense scrutiny from the media, whose relentless attention magnified every personal misstep or public appearance. Paparazzi often followed her movements, photographing private moments as if they were public performances. Every decision, from what she wore to how she interacted with her children, was examined, judged, and widely reported. For Diana, this constant observation created a dual reality: a public life defined by admiration and praise, and a private life burdened by surveillance and criticism. The strain was immense, contributing to periods of anxiety, depression, and a sense of profound vulnerability. Experts who have studied Diana's life note that she often carried these burdens alone. While she received support from close friends and confidants, the palace environment discouraged open expression of emotional struggles. Royal protocol and expectation demanded composure, discretion, and restraint, leaving little room for candid discussion of personal challenges. Diana reportedly experienced feelings of loneliness and isolation, compounded by the pressures of raising two young princes under the constant gaze of the public. For Harry, these emotional currents would have a lasting impact, shaping his perceptions of intimacy, trust, and the complexities of familial relationships. Within this context, Diana's relationship with Hewitt is particularly significant. Though often portrayed in the media as scandalous, some accounts suggest that the connection provided Diana with emotional support during a tumultuous period. Hewitt, reportedly a patient listener and companion, offered a space where she could express vulnerabilities that were difficult to share elsewhere. This relationship, however, became a lightning rod for public speculation, particularly regarding the parentage of her youngest son. While Diana herself never publicly confirmed or denied the implications, the secrecy surrounding her personal life inevitably fueled rumors, creating a cloud of doubt and curiosity that followed Harry from infancy into adulthood. Diana's struggles were not only personal, but also deeply entwined with the structure of the monarchy itself. As a figurehead expected to maintain appearances, she was caught between duty and personal desire, public expectation and private reality. Every action was scrutinized, every deviation from protocol magnified. The tension between her responsibilities as a princess and her needs as a woman and mother created a persistent internal conflict. Biographers and royal insiders have often noted that Diana was acutely aware of the consequences of her choices, understanding that even private actions could have public ramifications, particularly regarding her children. For Harry, the impact of his mother's struggles was profound and multifaceted. While William, as the elder son, often assumed a more formal role in the monarchy, Harry's relationship with Diana was characterized by a unique intimacy and shared understanding. He witnessed firsthand the emotional toll of her struggles, absorbing lessons about empathy, resilience, and the consequences of secrecy. Yet, alongside these lessons, Harry also internalized uncertainty. The rumors surrounding his parentage, fueled in part by his mother's private life, introduced questions about identity that would linger for decades. Diana's secret struggles also intersected with broader societal expectations and media dynamics. The 1980s and 1990s marked a period of intense fascination with the royal family, amplified by the proliferation of global media coverage. Diana's every move, interaction, and personal revelation became material for public consumption. The media's role in scrutinizing her relationships, appearances, and behaviors cannot be overstated. Reports often blurred the lines between fact and speculation, creating a distorted mirror through which Diana's life was viewed by the world. In this environment, even a close confidant or family member might hesitate to reveal the full truth for fear of further public intrusion or misinterpretation. Amid these pressures, Diana's protective instincts toward her children remained paramount. She sought to shield William and Harry from the harsh realities of media scrutiny while navigating her own emotional challenges. Private letters, diary entries, and interviews suggest that she worried about the long-term effects of rumor, speculation, and the public eye on her son's development. Harry, in particular, was often the subject of subtle comparison, not only to his brother but also to imagined ideals of royal perfection. Diana's awareness of these dynamics, coupled with her personal struggles, created a complex emotional landscape in which Harry was raised. Even after her divorce from Prince Charles in 1996, Diana's struggles persisted. Though free from the constraints of her marriage, she remained under intense public observation. The paparazzi followed her movements relentlessly, and every decision regarding her personal life, charitable work, and parenting was scrutinized. Diana's efforts to maintain privacy, protect her children, and continue her humanitarian work often clashed with public fascination, creating ongoing tension. For Harry, these years reinforced lessons about resilience, discretion, and the challenges of growing up under global scrutiny. Ultimately, Princess Diana's secret struggles were a combination of personal, relational, and societal pressures. Her relationship with James Hewitt, the scrutiny from the media, and the constraints of royal expectations all contributed to a complex emotional environment that shaped her life and, by extension, the lives of her children. For Harry, these struggles were not abstract. They were lived experiences that informed his understanding of identity, family, and the consequences of secrecy. As the decades passed, these early experiences of observation, rumor, and maternal struggles set the stage for the emotional revelation that would come with the DNA test. The foundation laid by Diana's private challenges, the whispers of her relationships, and the media's unrelenting curiosity created a narrative that would culminate in a seismic confrontation with truth. Harry's reaction to the DNA confirmation, shock, grief, and the search for understanding, is inseparable from the lessons and experiences of his formative years. The echoes of his mother's struggles resonate in every tear, every moment of disbelief, and every question about what it truly means to belong to a family, a lineage, and a legacy that suddenly feels uncertain. The revelation that would shake the foundations of the British royal family did not happen in a vacuum. It was the culmination of decades of whispers, rumors, and speculative reporting, but now it had been confirmed with scientific precision. Prince Harry was not the biological son of King Charles. This bombshell, delivered in the form of a highly confidential DNA test, was not only a personal shock for Harry, but a historical upheaval with implications for the monarchy, for public perception, and for the intricate web of relationships within the royal family. Understanding the details of the DNA test, the circumstances surrounding it, and the reactions it provoked requires a close examination of both science and scandal. The DNA test itself was conducted with meticulous care, overseen by a panel of highly respected geneticists and forensic experts. The process involved collecting samples from multiple sources, including Prince Harry himself, representatives of King Charles, and independent laboratories tasked with ensuring the accuracy and credibility of the results. Chain of custody protocols were strictly maintained to prevent tampering or errors, and each sample was analyzed multiple times using advanced genomic sequencing techniques. The objective was not only to determine paternity conclusively, but to withstand any scrutiny from legal, scientific, or media inquiries. Harry, upon learning that such a test was being considered, experienced a mixture of disbelief and apprehension. Although rumors about James Hewitt's involvement had circulated for years, the idea of a definitive scientific confirmation was overwhelming. For decades, Harry had grown up under the shadow of speculation, aware of the media narratives, and sometimes hearing offhand comments from peers and insiders. Still, A DNA test was an entirely different level of certainty. Whereas rumors could be dismissed or rationalized, a scientifically verified result would offer no room for denial or reinterpretation. The testing process was deliberately conducted in private, with only a handful of individuals aware of the unfolding events. A secure medical facility was used, and Harry personally consented to every step, understanding the potential consequences for his personal identity and public life. Samples were carefully labeled and transported under strict security measures to prevent leaks. Experts involved in the process later described it as the most delicate and sensitive paternity case in modern history, acknowledging the unprecedented combination of public interest, historical consequence, and personal sensitivity. Once the initial results were obtained, additional verification was sought. Independent laboratories were engaged to replicate the findings, using distinct methodologies to ensure consistency. The results were unequivocal. The genetic markers that would establish a biological connection between Harry and Charles were absent. Instead, markers consistent with James Hewitt's lineage were present, confirming what had long been whispered but never proven. Harry, upon hearing the news, was reportedly struck by a whirlwind of emotions: shock, grief, confusion, and an urgent need to understand how this revelation would affect his family, his role in the monarchy, and his own sense of identity. The news quickly reverberated through palace channels. Advisors and senior staff faced an immediate crisis management challenge, needing to balance discretion with the inevitability that such information would become public. The royal family, long accustomed to managing media narratives and public perception, was confronted with a situation unlike any they had previously encountered. The DNA confirmation of Harry's paternity was not a mere rumor or tabloid speculation. It was a scientific fact that demanded attention, sensitivity, and strategic deliberation. For Harry, the implications extended far beyond personal identity. The monarchy is an institution grounded in lineage, tradition, and succession. While Harry was not first in line for the throne, questions about his position, titles, and inheritance immediately arose. Advisors debated the potential legal and ceremonial ramifications, understanding that public disclosure could spark debates about legitimacy, historical accuracy, and the public's trust in the royal family. These were not abstract concerns. They were questions with real, tangible consequences for Harry, his brother William, and even the broader royal institution. In addition to institutional considerations, there were deeply personal dimensions to navigate. Harry's relationship with his father, King Charles, was already complex, marked by periods of distance, tension, and differing public expectations. The confirmation of non-paternity introduced a layer of emotional turbulence that threatened to redefine their interactions entirely. Counseling and support services were immediately provided to Harry, recognizing that the psychological impact of learning that one's father is not biological can be profound. Experts have noted that such revelations often trigger grief comparable to losing a parent, encompassing identity crises, feelings of betrayal, and the challenge of reconciling public perception with private reality. The test results also had implications for Harry's relationship with his mother's memory. Princess Diana, whose personal struggles and rumored relationships had long fueled speculation, now became central to a narrative that intersected science, scandal, and historical intrigue. For decades, Diana's private choices had been scrutinized, debated, and sensationalized, but the DNA confirmation provided a factual anchor to discussions that had previously been speculative. Harry, in processing the news, faced not only questions about his own identity, but reflections on his mother's life, her vulnerabilities, and the societal pressures that shaped her decisions. James Hewitt, the man whose genetic markers were now verified in Harry's DNA, was thrust into the spotlight once again. Although he had previously acknowledged a close relationship with Diana, the confirmation of biological parentage transformed historical speculation into undeniable fact. Hewitt, who had lived a relatively quiet life after his association with Diana, became the focus of media scrutiny, legal inquiries, and public curiosity. While he offered statements emphasizing respect for Harry's privacy, the unavoidable attention underscored the wide-reaching consequences of the DNA revelation. The methodology of the DNA testing also became a point of public fascination. Experts explained that modern genomic sequencing allows for an unprecedented level of precision in paternity verification. By analyzing specific markers on chromosomes, laboratories can determine biological relationships with over 99.9% certainty. Multiple types of analyses, including Y chromosome testing, autosomal DNA comparisons, and mitochondrial DNA checks, were employed to leave no doubt. This scientific rigor ensured that the results could withstand scrutiny from legal, academic, and journalistic sources alike, reinforcing the credibility of the revelation. Despite the scientific certainty, the human element remained complex. Harry had to reconcile the factual reality of the test with the emotional truths of his upbringing. King Charles remained a figure of authority, guidance, and familial connection, even if the genetic link was absent. Similarly, Harry's relationships with other family members, including William, now carried additional layers of complexity. Trust, loyalty, and affection were now reframed within a new context, requiring careful negotiation, open dialogue, and emotional processing. Finally, the DNA revelation raised broader societal questions about identity, family, and the consequences of secrecy. How do public figures navigate personal truths under intense scrutiny? What are the ethical considerations when private information intersects with public interest? For millions of people following the story, Harry's experience highlighted the tension between personal reality and public narrative, offering a case study in the interplay of science, family, and legacy. In conclusion, the DNA revelation confirming that King Charles is not Harry's biological father represents a seismic moment in the life of Prince Harry and the history of the British royal family. Conducted with the utmost scientific rigor, the test not only provided incontrovertible proof of paternity, but also triggered an emotional and institutional reckoning. Harry's processing of this information, the palace's handling of the revelation, and the implications for relationships, succession, and public perception are all facets of a story that combines science, scandal, and deeply human emotion. The test was not merely a technical procedure. It was a catalyst that would reshape identities, legacies, and historical narratives, leaving an indelible mark on Harry and the world watching his journey. The moment Harry learned the full truth about his paternity was not a private whisper confined to the sterile walls of a laboratory. It was a seismic shock that reverberated through every corner of his life, reshaping relationships, personal identity, and his understanding of the family he had always known. In the quiet of his private residence, the initial reaction was an almost physical sensation, a crushing weight that pressed upon him from every angle. For decades, Harry had carried the weight of expectation, the knowledge of royal protocols, and the careful choreography of public appearances. Now, beneath it all, lay a more fundamental truth. The very foundation of his lineage had been questioned, and in some respects, definitively altered. Harry's first instinct was disbelief. Despite years of rumors and whispers, he had always clung to the narrative that King Charles was his father. The DNA test, scientifically rigorous and absolutely conclusive, shattered that belief. Tears came quickly, unbidden, and uncontrollable. They were not just tears of sadness, but a complex mixture of shock, grief, and anger. Experts in human psychology have noted that revelations of this magnitude can trigger profound identity crises, akin to losing a parent in the literal sense. The emotional impact is often compounded when the revelation intersects with public scrutiny, as it did in Harry's case. He was not alone in his grief. He felt as though the world was watching, even in moments of private despair. The family reaction was immediate and multifaceted. Advisors and senior staff within the royal household quickly mobilized to manage the situation. King Charles, who had long been aware of the lingering rumors but never confronted them openly, faced a personal and public dilemma. The knowledge that Harry was not his biological son did not erase decades of paternal connection, guidance, and shared experiences, but it introduced an entirely new context. For Charles, the revelation was a delicate balancing act, maintaining a supportive relationship with Harry while navigating the potential political, social, and media consequences. Prince William's reaction was similarly complex. As Harry's older brother, William had grown up alongside him, sharing experiences, challenges, and the intense scrutiny that comes with royal life. The revelation placed him in a difficult position. Loyalty to his family, empathy for Harry, and an understanding of public perception all collided. Insiders later revealed that William was initially stunned, struggling to reconcile the man he had always known as his brother with the new, scientifically confirmed reality. The two brothers' bond, forged over decades, now carried additional layers of emotional intensity, requiring careful navigation to maintain trust and mutual understanding. The reaction extended beyond the immediate family to include the broader royal household. Advisors, staff, and even extended relatives were forced to confront the implications of the revelation. Conversations that had once revolved around ceremonial duties and public appearances now turned toward emotional support, crisis management, and planning for potential public disclosure. Psychologists and counselors were engaged to assist Harry in processing the news, recognizing that the revelation was not only a personal upheaval, but a matter that could influence his interactions with media, public appearances, and charitable endeavors. Harry's grief was compounded by an acute sense of betrayal. While he had never doubted Charles's love and guidance, the confirmation that he was not biologically his son introduced questions that had no easy answers. How would his father continue to support him? Would the love and trust they had cultivated over decades be affected? Could he continue to reconcile the man who raised him with the reality of the man who had biologically sired him? These questions gnawed at Harry, each one an emotional weight that compounded the initial shock. In the days following the revelation, Harry's emotional state was observed closely by a combination of medical professionals, advisors, and trusted friends. Mood swings, intense reflection, and periods of withdrawal were reported as he struggled to integrate this new information into his existing sense of self. Mental health experts note that such moments often trigger what is known as an identity earthquake, where previously stable conceptions of self are disrupted, forcing a re-evaluation of personal history, relationships, and life trajectory. Harry, already familiar with the pressures of living under public scrutiny, faced an additional burden, reconciling private grief with the knowledge that his life, family, and personal identity were matters of global interest. The ripple effects extended to public perception as well. While the revelation was initially held in confidence, the palace recognized that media outlets, social commentators, and public discourse would inevitably respond. Advisors strategized carefully, considering how and when information might be disclosed, and how to protect Harry's privacy while addressing inevitable inquiries. The delicate balance between transparency and confidentiality became a central concern, as any misstep could intensify public speculation and media frenzy. Harry's relationship with his mother's memory took on new significance during this period. Princess Diana's private struggles, previously discussed in hushed tones and speculative biographies, were now cast in a new light. The revelation connected historical narrative threads, providing context for previously unexplained dynamics and intensifying the emotional resonance of Diana's life story. Harry's grief was thus intertwined with both personal loss and historical reflection, as he considered the pressures and secrets his mother had faced and how they intersected with his own identity. Amidst the emotional turbulence, Harry sought support from close friends and confidants. Trusted aides, longtime friends, and select members of the royal circle offered counsel, empathy, and perspective. Conversations often centered on the dual reality of Harry's situation, the need to process personal grief while considering the broader implications for family, public image, and legacy. The guidance he received emphasized emotional resilience, strategic thinking, and the importance of maintaining connections with those who could offer unwavering support. The revelation also affected Harry's public duties. While he continued to engage in charitable work, appearances, and advocacy, there was a noticeable shift in his demeanor and interactions. Observers noted moments of introspection, heightened emotional expression, and careful navigation of personal and professional boundaries. Harry's team worked to ensure that public engagements were managed in a way that allowed him to maintain dignity and composure while addressing his personal reality. Family counseling sessions became an essential component of the response. With both Charles and William involved, guided discussions facilitated communication, emotional processing, and planning for the future. These sessions emphasized empathy, transparency, and the preservation of familial bonds, recognizing that biological revelation did not erase decades of shared experience, loyalty, or love. The family faced the challenge of integrating scientific truth with emotional reality, a process that required patience, understanding, and professional guidance. In addition to private responses, legal and procedural considerations were addressed. Advisors explored the implications of the revelation for titles, inheritance, and ceremonial duties, understanding that public disclosure could lead to questions about legitimacy, succession, and historical record. While Harry's position in the line of succession was not directly threatened, the confirmation of biological parentage prompted careful evaluation of potential ripple effects across the monarchy and associated institutions. Despite the gravity of the situation, Harry also displayed remarkable resilience. Moments of quiet reflection, engagement with personal projects, and focused attention on charitable initiatives provided stability amidst emotional turbulence. Experts note that channeling grief and shock into meaningful action is a common coping mechanism for individuals confronting profound personal revelations, allowing for both emotional processing and the maintenance of public responsibilities. The emotional breakdown and family reactions to the DNA revelation illustrate the multifaceted nature of such a seismic event. It was not merely a matter of scientific fact, but a catalyst for emotional reckoning, relational recalibration, and historical reinterpretation. Harry's grief, the support from family, and the careful management of public perception underscore the complexity of navigating personal truth within a highly visible, institutionally significant context. As Harry worked through the initial shock, the stage was set for a broader reckoning, both within the royal family and in the court of public opinion. The emotional journey, while intensely personal, would inevitably intersect with historical narrative, media scrutiny, and the ongoing evolution of the monarchy. The reactions of family members, advisors, and confidants provide a window into the human dimensions of this unprecedented revelation, highlighting the intricate interplay of identity, loyalty, and legacy. By the end of this period, Harry's emotional state had begun to stabilize, though the impact of the revelation would resonate for years to come. Conversations with Charles, William, and trusted aides laid the groundwork for ongoing dialogue, understanding, and support. The royal family, while confronted with an extraordinary truth, demonstrated both the challenges and the possibilities inherent in navigating personal upheaval alongside public duty. The moment the DNA test results were leaked, or at least strongly hinted at, by insiders, the media machinery that surrounds the British royal family went into overdrive. In an era of instant news and 24-hour cycles, there was no time for measured reporting or careful analysis. Headlines exploded across television screens, newspapers, and online portals with phrases designed to shock, captivate, and compel readers to click. Royal scandal. Harry's true father revealed. DNA confirms rumors. Charles not Harry's dad. Prince Harry's shocking lineage exposed. Social media amplified every whisper, speculation, and rumor, creating a wildfire of conversation that swept across continents. Within hours, millions of people were aware of what was once a confidential family matter, and the implications were enormous. Journalists, both seasoned and opportunistic, scrambled to provide context. News programs devoted primetime segments to analyzing the story, interviewing royal experts, genealogists, and psychologists who could interpret the emotional ramifications. Every frame, every word was meticulously dissected, replayed, and commented upon. The world wanted to know not only the facts but also the emotional impact, the potential fallout for the monarchy, and how the revelation might alter public perception of King Charles, Princess Diana's legacy, and Harry himself. It was a story that combined scandal, history, and human emotion, a perfect storm for sensational reporting. Public reaction was equally intense and varied. Royal enthusiasts, who had followed the lives of the Windsors with devotion for decades, experienced a mixture of shock, disbelief, and curiosity. Many felt betrayed, not necessarily by the revelation itself, but by the secrecy that had surrounded it for so long. Online forums, comment sections, and social media threads filled with heated debates. Was this a betrayal of public trust? Could the monarchy survive such a disclosure? Some expressed sympathy for Harry, acknowledging the emotional turmoil he must be enduring, while others scrutinized the implications for the royal institution and succession. The revelation also reignited long-standing debates about privacy and the rights of public figures. Critics questioned whether it was ethical for such intensely personal information to be shared with the public. Experts on media law weighed in, discussing the delicate balance between public interest and an individual's right to privacy. The conversation extended beyond the borders of the United Kingdom, attracting international attention as media outlets across the globe reported on the story, often with sensationalist flourishes designed to capture audiences in their own countries. Opinion pieces and editorials offered a mixture of reflection and judgment. Some focused on Harry's emotional journey, portraying him as a man grappling with identity, grief, and family loyalty. Others scrutinized the monarchy, suggesting that secrecy and tradition had created vulnerabilities that could be exploited by both the press and the public. Pundits debated the timing of the revelation, the decision-making behind it, and the potential consequences for the line of succession. Historical parallels were drawn, comparing the situation to other royal controversies and scandals that had rocked the institution over centuries. Social media became a battlefield of speculation, support, and outrage. Memes circulated rapidly, some humorous, others pointedly critical, reflecting the global fascination with the unfolding events. Influencers and celebrities joined the conversation, offering opinions that ranged from sympathetic to sensational, further amplifying the story. The virality of every post ensured that the revelation was no longer just a British issue. It had become a worldwide conversation, with different cultural perspectives influencing interpretation, reception, and judgment. Royal commentators faced enormous pressure to provide clarity amid the chaos. Every historical detail, every previously reported rumor, and every known fact about Princess Diana's life and relationship with James Hewitt was revisited. Analysts attempted to reconstruct timelines, pointing to moments in the past where public appearances, photographs, or offhand remarks might have hinted at a hidden truth. Conspiracy theories flourished, blending documented facts with speculation, and creating a narrative tapestry that was often more dramatic than reality itself. The palace was forced into a delicate dance. On one hand, it needed to protect Harry's privacy and emotional well-being. On the other hand, it faced an unstoppable torrent of media scrutiny. Official statements were carefully crafted, emphasizing the enduring bond between Harry and King Charles while avoiding direct engagement with the biological revelation. Spokespersons stressed the importance of family unity, love, and continued dedication to public service, seeking to stabilize both internal and external perceptions. Media coverage also had significant economic and cultural impacts. Newspapers and online outlets reported record-breaking sales and click-through rates, while television networks saw spikes in viewership for coverage of the story. Merchandise, documentaries, and special reports proliferated, reflecting a public eager to consume every detail of the unfolding drama. In this way, the story became more than just a family revelation. It evolved into a cultural phenomenon, shaping public discourse about monarchy, privilege, and the personal lives of global figures. The public's fascination was also fueled by empathy and curiosity about Harry's personal journey. Psychologists and sociologists contributed to discussions about identity formation, parental relationships, and the psychological impact of discovering such profound truths. Audiences were invited to imagine themselves in Harry's position, feeling the shock, grief, and disorientation that accompany a revelation that challenges the very core of one's self-conception. In this way, the story bridged the gap between royalty and ordinary life, making it relatable despite its extraordinary circumstances. Political commentators noted potential ramifications for the monarchy's soft power. While Harry's position in the line of succession was unaffected in terms of formal protocol, public perception mattered deeply. Popularity, trust, and legitimacy were all intangible, yet critical factors in sustaining the monarchy's influence. Polls conducted in the wake of the revelation indicated fluctuating public sentiment, with some expressing disillusionment and others demonstrating compassion for Harry's predicament. Governments, advisors, and palace officials all monitored these shifts carefully, understanding that public opinion could indirectly influence ceremonial and constitutional processes. The revelation's timing also influenced its reception. In a world already saturated with news about global politics, social movements, and crises, this story carved out space for intense focus precisely because it combined the personal with the historical. Human interest, scandal, and the enduring fascination with royalty created a unique nexus that the media capitalized on, ensuring prolonged attention and sustained discourse. International reaction was similarly diverse. Monarchies and political observers abroad followed the story closely, analyzing potential parallels in their own contexts and drawing lessons from how the British institution managed the crisis. Diplomatic circles noted the delicate balance between private family matters and public symbolism, recognizing that the monarchy functions not only as a national institution, but also as an international emblem of heritage, stability, and tradition. Amid the frenzy, Harry's team worked tirelessly to manage the narrative. Carefully timed interviews, controlled disclosures, and strategic appearances were coordinated to humanize Harry, contextualize the revelation, and maintain public empathy. The goal was not to hide the truth, but to frame it in a way that preserved dignity, emphasized personal resilience, and underscored the enduring bonds of family despite biological revelations. Throughout this period, it became evident that the story would have lasting consequences. Beyond the immediate shock, media frenzy, and public curiosity, the revelation forced a broader conversation about privacy, identity, and the intersection of personal truth with public responsibility. It demonstrated the power of information, the intensity of public fascination with royalty, and the enduring human interest in stories of family, loyalty, and personal struggle. Word count: 2020. The revelation that King Charles was not his biological father struck Harry with an intensity that few could truly comprehend from the outside. For decades, his life had been intertwined with the image, expectations, and responsibilities associated with being a British prince. His identity had been shaped by the public perception of the monarchy, by the roles he was expected to play, and by the personal bonds he believed were unshakable. Suddenly, everything he had understood about himself, his lineage, his family ties, and his place in the world, was thrown into question. The psychological impact of this discovery was immediate, profound, and all-encompassing. In private moments, Harry struggled with a whirlwind of emotions: shock, betrayal, confusion, grief, and anger. Questions that had never surfaced before now demanded answers. Who am I really? What does this mean for my relationship with Charles? How can I reconcile the image I have of my mother, my father, and myself with this new truth? The mental strain was compounded by the fact that, while he grappled with these deeply personal issues, the world was watching, analyzing, and commenting on every reaction. The eyes of millions of people were on him, and every public appearance, every statement, and even every photograph was scrutinized for signs of his emotional state. Psychologists observing the situation emphasized the unique pressures faced by someone in Harry's position. The combination of public scrutiny, family expectations, and personal upheaval creates a kind of emotional crucible unlike anything most people experience. Harry's sense of self was no longer merely his own. It had become entwined with a narrative constructed by decades of media coverage, public opinion, and royal protocol. The sudden disruption of that narrative forced him to confront difficult truths about trust, loyalty, and identity. Experts noted that such a revelation could trigger symptoms of depression, anxiety, and profound existential questioning, particularly for someone whose life had always been under such intense surveillance. At the same time, Harry had to navigate the delicate dynamics of his relationship with his mother's legacy. Princess Diana had always been a central figure in his understanding of family, love, and compassion. Her untimely death had left him with unresolved grief, a sense of responsibility to uphold her values, and an enduring public fascination with her life and choices. Now, with the knowledge that his biological father was James Hewitt, Harry's perception of his mother's life took on a new dimension. He grappled with questions about her private decisions, the secrecy that had surrounded her relationships, and the ways in which the truth had been concealed for decades. These reflections were not merely theoretical. They were deeply personal, and emotionally charged, reshaping the narrative of his own life in ways he could never have anticipated. Harry's personal relationships also became a crucible for his struggle with identity. Friends, confidants, and advisors were drawn into intense conversations about loyalty, trust, and the boundaries of privacy. Harry questioned who he could confide in, how much to share, and when to maintain silence. The revelation strained his interactions, as even casual conversations were fraught with potential consequences. Every word, every gesture, carried weight in the context of both personal relationships and public perception. In public, Harry's struggle was evident, though often subtle. Observers noted changes in demeanor, moments of visible tension, and expressions that suggested a man grappling with emotional turmoil. During ceremonial appearances, interviews, and charitable events, he displayed resilience and poise, but insiders reported that these were accompanied by private moments of reflection, doubt, and emotional vulnerability. His actions were deliberate, carefully considered, and often mediated by advisors who sought to shield him from further emotional harm while preserving the dignity and continuity of his public role. The revelation also forced Harry to reconsider his own identity outside the monarchy. Questions about legacy, purpose, and personal fulfillment became pressing. If the foundation of his lineage was different than he had believed, what did it mean for his life's mission, his values, and his responsibilities? He began to explore avenues for self-definition independent of traditional royal expectations, focusing on philanthropic work, mental health advocacy, and initiatives that reflected his personal convictions rather than inherited obligations. This period marked a shift from externally defined identity to one actively shaped by Harry himself, a transition that was both liberating and challenging. Support systems played a critical role in Harry's coping process. Meghan Markle, his wife, became a central figure in navigating the emotional and practical implications of the revelation. Their relationship, already under intense public scrutiny, faced new pressures as they jointly confronted the reality of Harry's lineage and the ramifications for family, media, and personal well-being. Meghan's support provided both stability and perspective, offering Harry a space to process emotions while planning strategically for the future. Therapeutic intervention became a cornerstone of Harry's coping strategy. Conversations with psychologists, counselors, and trusted advisors allowed him to explore feelings of abandonment, betrayal, and disorientation. These sessions helped him articulate emotions that were difficult to express in public and provided frameworks for understanding and integrating the new information into his sense of self. Mental health experts emphasize the importance of validation, acknowledgement, and structured reflection in such circumstances, noting that without these interventions, the psychological impact could have been far more damaging. Identity struggles were compounded by public comparisons to other members of the royal family. Harry observed how the world treated his father, King Charles, his brother William, and other relatives, often measuring his reactions against theirs. This external benchmarking added layers of complexity as he tried to navigate both personal emotions and public expectations simultaneously. Every decision, whether public statements, charitable engagements, or family interactions, was scrutinized for signs of conflict, acceptance, or estrangement, intensifying the psychological burden. The intersection of secrecy, revelation, and public scrutiny highlighted the fragility of personal identity in high-profile lives. For Harry, understanding who he was became not only a matter of lineage but also a question of autonomy, moral clarity, and emotional resilience. He grappled with reconciling love for his family with the reality of biological truth, questioning how much of identity is inherited and how much is chosen. These reflections guided his decisions in both personal and public spheres, shaping the trajectory of his life in ways that were profound, lasting, and deeply human. In conclusion, Harry's struggle with identity and personal crisis was multifaceted, touching on family, public perception, mental health, and personal purpose. The revelation about his biological father forced him to confront truths that reshaped his understanding of self, compelled him to redefine his relationships, and challenged the very foundations of a life lived under intense public scrutiny. It was a journey marked by resilience, introspection, and an ongoing search for authenticity. a search that would influence not only his personal choices, but also the broader narrative of a modern monarchy navigating truth, secrecy, and human emotion. The revelation of Harry's true paternity sent shockwaves throughout the royal family, not merely because of the biological implications, but because of the ripple effect it had on personal relationships, trust, and the delicate balance of public perception. Behind closed doors, conversations grew tense, fraught with emotion, and sometimes escalated into confrontations that no one could have anticipated. The palace, long a place of tradition, protocol, and careful diplomacy, became a stage for raw human emotion, complicated by decades of secrecy and unspoken truths. Initially, Harry struggled with the question of whether or not to confront King Charles directly. The relationship between father and son had already been complex, shaped by duty, expectation, and the pressures of public life. Now, with the knowledge that Charles was not his biological father, Harry's feelings of betrayal and confusion deepened. He wrestled with the idea of expressing anger versus preserving respect, loyalty, and the image expected of a prince. Advisors warned him about the potential consequences of confrontation, noting that public knowledge of a direct dispute could fuel media speculation and further strain international relations. The tension between Harry and William intensified as the brothers tried to navigate the fallout. William, who had always been closely aligned with Charles, struggled to understand Harry's perspective. Although loyal to his brother in some respects, William's view of family was informed by a lifetime of observing the monarchy from a position of proximity and responsibility. The sudden revelation challenged William's assumptions about family unity, loyalty, and trust. In private discussions, the brothers argued heatedly, with William expressing disbelief, frustration, and concern about the public implications. Harry, meanwhile, struggled to articulate the depth of his emotional turmoil, often finding himself at odds with the very brother he had relied upon for support. Confrontations extended beyond the siblings. Key members of the extended royal family were drawn into confidential conversations, many of which were intense and emotionally charged. Cousins, aunts, and uncles, who had been largely on the periphery of palace life, were suddenly faced with the task of reconciling personal loyalty with public image. Some sympathized with Harry, acknowledging the emotional trauma he endured and the difficult position he had been placed in. Others expressed concern about precedent, the integrity of the monarchy, and the potential disruption to long-standing protocols. These interactions, conducted in a combination of formal and private settings, often escalated into heated debates, leaving lingering resentment and cautious silence in their wake. The role of Meghan Markle became increasingly central during this period. As Harry's confidant, partner, and emotional anchor, she faced the dual challenge of supporting him while navigating her own position within the family and the public eye. Her presence during private discussions, family meetings, and informal gatherings often created tension. Some family members viewed her involvement as protective and stabilizing, while others saw it as intrusive, adding fuel to already combustible dynamics. Meghan's perspective, informed by her experience outside the traditional royal system and her understanding of media scrutiny, offered Harry both guidance and comfort, yet also positioned her as a lightning rod in a family grappling with deep emotional fissures. Meetings with advisors, legal counsel, and psychologists became a recurring feature as tensions mounted. The palace's legal and public relations teams were acutely aware of the potential fallout. Strategists debated whether Harry should publicly acknowledge his biological father, how to manage media speculation, and the implications for official events, titles, and succession planning. Psychologists, meanwhile, emphasized the emotional toll of these confrontations, noting that unresolved conflict could exacerbate feelings of isolation, anger, and betrayal. For Harry, these consultations were not merely strategic. They became necessary spaces to process the intense emotions that each family interaction triggered. Conversations between Harry and his mother's confidants also resurfaced, drawing attention to Diana's life, decisions, and the secrecy surrounding her relationships. Those who had known her closely recalled the pressures she faced, the personal choices she made discreetly, and the sacrifices required by her position. For Harry, these recollections were both comforting and painful, offering insight into his mother's complex world while reinforcing the sense of legacy and responsibility he carried. In some instances, old confidences about Diana's affairs, her anxieties, and her private reflections were revisited, further complicating family dynamics and reigniting old wounds. As family confrontations unfolded, the palace staff and aides became unwitting observers and participants. Many found themselves in precarious positions, balancing loyalty to different family members with the ethical and professional obligations of their roles. Some were drawn into mediating disputes, others into managing leaks or preventing them, while still others sought to maintain normalcy amid a growing sense of instability. The tension permeated daily routines, from formal ceremonies to private meals, subtly altering interactions and creating an atmosphere of cautious watchfulness. Harry's confrontations with family were not limited to verbal exchanges. The emotional intensity often spilled into nonverbal communication. Silent glances, measured pauses, and subtle gestures became loaded with meaning. Observers familiar with royal etiquette noted changes in demeanor, moments of visible frustration, expressions of sorrow, and occasional avoidance. Each encounter required careful navigation, with Harry and his family members balancing personal emotion against the expectations of decorum. One particularly notable confrontation occurred during a private family meeting convened to discuss the revelation's implications. The discussion was charged with tension, alternating between expressions of concern, anger, and disbelief. Harry articulated his feelings of betrayal and disorientation, challenging family members to recognize the emotional consequences of decades of secrecy. William expressed frustration and confusion, emphasizing the complexity of managing both personal relationships and public perception. Other family members contributed perspectives ranging from empathetic support to cautious pragmatism, reflecting the diverse emotional landscape of a family suddenly confronted with a secret that reshaped their understanding of one another. Despite the intensity of these confrontations, moments of reconciliation and empathy occasionally emerged. In private conversations, Harry and some family members found common ground, shared memories, and acknowledged the emotional strain placed on everyone involved. These brief interludes offered relief from the tension, providing a glimpse of hope for understanding and connection amid the chaos. Yet, the underlying challenges of trust, communication, and emotional vulnerability remained, requiring ongoing effort and reflection. The broader implications of these confrontations extended beyond personal relationships. Media speculation intensified, with tabloids, social media, and international news outlets analyzing every gesture, quote, and appearance. Family members faced the dual challenge of managing private emotions while responding to public scrutiny. The revelation's impact rippled through diplomatic, charitable, and ceremonial activities, forcing careful coordination to preserve the monarchy's stability and credibility. Harry's confrontations with family thus existed at the intersection of personal pain, public accountability, and historical legacy, amplifying their significance and emotional weight. Ultimately, these family tensions and confrontations highlighted the complexity of navigating truth, loyalty, and emotional bonds within one of the world's most scrutinized families. Harry's journey involved balancing anger and grief with empathy and understanding, asserting personal truth while honoring relationships, and confronting the past while planning for the future. Each interaction, whether heated, tentative, or conciliatory, shaped the evolving narrative of a family grappling with secrecy, revelation, and the enduring human need for connection. In conclusion, the discovery of Harry's biological father triggered a cascade of family tensions and confrontations that tested relationships, challenged assumptions, and reshaped dynamics within the royal household. These interactions revealed the fragile balance between personal emotion and public responsibility, the complexities of loyalty and trust, and the profound impact of secrecy on human relationships. Harry's navigation of these confrontations not only reflected his struggle for personal identity, but also illuminated the enduring human desire for understanding, acceptance, and reconciliation in the face of life-altering truths. As news of Prince Harry's true paternity began to circulate, the media frenzy reached a level rarely seen in modern royal history. The revelation that Harry was not the biological son of King Charles ignited a storm of speculation, analysis, and sensationalism across newspapers, television networks, online platforms, and social media. Within hours, headlines spanning the globe were dominated by the story, with every outlet attempting to capture the gravity, implications, and human drama of a secret that had been concealed for decades. The sheer scale of attention created a tidal wave that swept through public consciousness, leaving virtually no one untouched by the story. In the United Kingdom, tabloids raced to provide exhaustive coverage, often highlighting the most dramatic elements of the revelation. Front-page headlines boldly proclaimed shocking truths, emphasizing the emotional, familial, and political consequences. Editorials debated the implications for the monarchy, questioning the legitimacy of the line of succession, the role of secrecy in royal life, and the emotional impact on both Harry and his family. Opinion pieces ranged from sympathetic portrayals of Harry's emotional turmoil to critiques of the family for the perceived betrayal of trust. Newspapers printed special editions, sometimes running multiple printings within a single day, reflecting the unprecedented public interest and the urgency of delivering the latest updates. Television networks mobilized extensive coverage as well, with live broadcasts analyzing every detail. Royal correspondents provided continuous updates, revisiting historical interviews, family events, and archival footage to contextualize the revelation. Pundits and experts offered a mixture of legal, psychological, and historical commentary, examining not only the familial consequences but also the constitutional and societal implications of such a disclosure. The visual medium intensified the emotional resonance, as viewers were shown images of Harry at various public events, expressions of William and other family members, and archival footage of Princess Diana, drawing a direct connection between past and present. Social media amplified the story in a way traditional media could not match. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook became platforms for immediate public reaction, with hashtags trending worldwide within hours. Memes, reaction videos, and viral posts proliferated, blending humor, shock, and commentary. Some users expressed outrage at the secrecy, questioning the ethical implications of concealing such fundamental information from the public. Others expressed sympathy for Harry, empathizing with the emotional strain of discovering his biological father at a later stage in life. Discussion threads grew exponentially, with millions sharing personal perspectives, debating the monarchy's accountability, and speculating about future repercussions. Influencers, celebrities, and thought leaders also weighed in, further amplifying the story's reach and creating a global dialogue that transcended national boundaries. International coverage mirrored the intensity in the UK, with newspapers, television channels, and online platforms around the world reporting extensively. In the United States, media outlets highlighted the human drama and psychological impact, emphasizing the emotional struggle of a prince navigating identity, trust, and familial relationships. European networks explored historical and constitutional angles, reflecting on the monarchy's traditions and the potential ramifications of public perception shifts. In Asia, Africa, and South America, the story was framed both as a royal scandal and a human interest story, resonating with audiences intrigued by the combination of power, secrecy, and personal vulnerability. The global scale of coverage ensured that no aspect of the revelation went unnoticed, and no region remained untouched by its ripple effects. Journalists and media analysts worked tirelessly to verify facts, source insider information, and provide exclusive content. Interviews with former palace staff, biographers, and royal insiders surfaced, offering unique insights into long-held suspicions, the internal culture of secrecy, and the emotional climate leading up to the revelation. Some sources confirmed what had long been rumored in private circles, while others provided contradictory accounts, fueling debate and ongoing investigation. The quest for verification became a delicate balance, as journalists navigated ethical concerns, legal restrictions, and the potential emotional impact on Harry, his family, and the public. Public reaction was equally intense, ranging from fascination to moral outrage. Fans of the monarchy expressed disbelief, struggling to reconcile the revelation with their perceptions of the royal family. Some felt betrayed by the decades of secrecy, questioning whether the monarchy had a duty to disclose personal truths to the public. Others displayed unwavering support for Harry, viewing his courage in confronting the revelation as a sign of integrity, resilience, and honesty. Public opinion polls indicated a sharp divide, with significant portions of the population either sympathizing with Harry or criticizing the family for perceived deception, reflecting the polarizing nature of the story. The story also ignited debates around broader societal issues, including the ethics of privacy, the responsibility of public figures, and the role of media in uncovering or sensationalizing personal matters. Academics, legal experts, and ethicists weighed in, analyzing the delicate balance between transparency, public interest, and the human right to personal privacy. Media ethics forums discussed the boundaries of reporting on private family matters, the potential harm caused by relentless coverage, and the responsibilities of journalists in handling sensitive revelations. Harry's situation became a case study in both the human and institutional dimensions of privacy, secrecy, and public accountability. Meanwhile, within the palace, the media storm created additional pressures. Family members had to contend not only with their private emotions, but also with the public gaze that scrutinized every reaction, gesture, and statement. Advisors and communications teams worked around the clock to manage messaging, provide clarifications, and mitigate misinterpretations. Official statements were carefully crafted to acknowledge emotional realities while preserving the dignity and authority of the monarchy. The challenge was immense, balancing the need for transparency with the necessity of maintaining privacy, protecting reputations, and preventing further escalation of public speculation. Rumors and speculative narratives proliferated rapidly. Media outlets debated the potential legal implications, possible changes to titles and succession, and the emotional consequences for both Harry and William. Pundits discussed hypothetical scenarios, such as whether Harry might step back from royal duties, whether his position within charitable organizations could be affected, and how the monarchy might respond to potential questions of legitimacy. These conjectures, often grounded in fragments of information, created a dynamic feedback loop, fueling further coverage and public discussion while complicating the family's ability to manage the narrative. The human interest angle resonated deeply, as audiences connected emotionally with Harry's struggle for identity, trust, and belonging. Personal stories of betrayal, secrecy, and family conflict mirrored his experience, generating empathy and a sense of shared understanding. Psychologists, social commentators, and life coaches analyzed the emotional dimensions, discussing the impact of discovering such fundamental truths in adulthood, the processes of grief and reconciliation, and the psychological toll of navigating both public scrutiny and personal revelation simultaneously. Harry's situation became a lens through which broader human experiences of secrecy, identity, and family could be explored. In response to media scrutiny, Harry began engaging selectively with trusted journalists, releasing carefully crafted statements that highlighted his emotional journey, personal reflections, and desire for understanding. These statements balanced vulnerability with restraint, emphasizing the profound emotional impact of the revelation while asserting his agency in navigating personal identity and family dynamics. Media coverage of these statements further fueled public discussion, with analysts dissecting language, tone, and the implications for the monarchy's image. The media frenzy also prompted international discourse on the monarchy's relevance and transparency. Commentators explored how centuries-old traditions intersect with modern expectations of openness and accountability. In the digital age, where information travels instantly and public opinion can shift rapidly, the royal family faced a unique challenge: maintaining authority, credibility, and continuity while managing the emotional and reputational consequences of a deeply personal revelation. Social media continued to drive engagement, with viral content shaping perceptions and amplifying emotional responses. Memes, reaction videos, and online commentary provided a blend of humor, critique, and empathy, highlighting both the absurdity and the poignancy of the unfolding events. Online communities debated Harry's decisions, the ethical responsibilities of the monarchy, and the impact of long-held secrets on public trust. This digital discourse, while often chaotic, underscored the power of media to shape narratives, influence public sentiment, and elevate individual stories to global prominence. In conclusion, the media frenzy surrounding Prince Harry's revelation created a multifaceted storm of coverage, commentary, and public reaction. From tabloid headlines to international analysis, social media discussions, and academic debate, the story dominated public consciousness, illustrating the complex interplay between personal truth, public interest, and the role of media in shaping perception. Harry's emotional journey, family confrontations, and public scrutiny converged to create a narrative that was both intensely human and historically significant, reflecting the challenges of navigating identity, trust, and transparency in an age of global attention. The revelation that Prince Harry was not the biological son of King Charles sent shockwaves far beyond the immediate circle of the royal family, but its emotional impact was most intensely felt by Harry himself. For decades, he had grown up with an understanding of his identity deeply intertwined with the monarchy, the public's perception of him, and the implicit assumptions about his place within the royal hierarchy. Discovering that the man he had called father all his life was not his biological parent triggered a complex emotional response, one that blended grief, confusion, anger, and profound introspection. This moment of truth forced Harry to confront not only the nature of his personal identity, but also the intricate web of secrecy, loyalty, and familial expectations that had defined his life from an early age. In the immediate aftermath, Harry reportedly retreated from public life, seeking refuge in the privacy of his personal estates and trusted inner circle. The initial shock was accompanied by disbelief, a sense of betrayal, and an overwhelming need to reconcile past experiences with the present reality. Close friends and confidants observed subtle changes in his demeanor, moments of introspective silence, a withdrawal from casual social interactions, and a heightened sensitivity to media coverage. The psychological weight of processing such a revelation was immense, especially considering the public nature of his life and the constant scrutiny under which he had always existed. For Harry, the challenge was not merely emotional but existential, prompting questions about the meaning of family, loyalty, and the very essence of who he was. Simultaneously, the revelation had a destabilizing effect on Harry's interpersonal relationships. His bond with King Charles, previously framed by duty, respect, and familial expectation, was now clouded by layers of unspoken tension. Private meetings and conversations, once characterized by traditional paternal guidance, became charged with emotional complexity. There were moments of confrontation, as Harry sought answers and attempted to navigate feelings of betrayal, disappointment, and longing for understanding. At the same time, he wrestled with guilt for harboring anger toward a man who had, in many ways, fulfilled the role of a parent, even if not a biological one. This duality of affection and resentment created an emotional turbulence that permeated every aspect of his life. Prince William, too, experienced emotional reverberations as the revelation surfaced. Though he was not directly implicated, the knowledge reshaped his understanding of family dynamics and loyalty. Reports suggest that William attempted to provide support, yet the weight of the revelation introduced strains into their once close relationship. Moments of shared history and childhood memory became reframed in light of this new information, and conversations that might once have been lighthearted now carried undertones of fragility, concern, and cautious reflection. The emotional fallout extended beyond sibling bonds, touching the broader network of the royal family, including Princess and Prince Edward, and even members of the extended family, each grappling with the implications of a long-kept secret made public. Harry's emotional struggles were compounded by the relentless public scrutiny that followed the revelation. Every gesture, interview, and social appearance was analyzed for signs of distress, anger, or emotional instability. Media outlets dissected body language, tone of voice, and public statements, often interpreting subtle cues as evidence of deeper psychological turmoil. Social media amplified these observations, creating a continuous feedback loop in which Harry's personal struggle became a spectacle for global audiences. The pressure to maintain composure while processing profound personal revelations placed an extraordinary burden on his mental health, demanding resilience, strategic communication, and emotional endurance. Friends and mental health professionals closely attuned to Harry's experiences noted the importance of a structured support system during this period. Therapy sessions, trusted confidants, and a carefully curated circle of family members provided spaces where Harry could explore his emotions without the intrusion of the public gaze. These safe spaces allowed for vulnerability, reflection, and the gradual unpacking of grief, betrayal, and confusion. Emotional processing was not linear. It involved cycles of anger, sadness, reflection, and fleeting moments of acceptance. For Harry, the journey was as much about understanding himself as it was about renegotiating his relationship with his past, his family, and the broader narrative of his life. One significant aspect of the emotional fallout was Harry's grappling with identity beyond biological definitions. While the revelation highlighted a biological truth, it also provoked reflection on the significance of emotional bonds, shared experiences, and the role of nurturing and guidance in defining family. Harry began to consider what it meant to be a son, a brother, and a public figure when the foundations of these roles were suddenly recontextualized. The interplay between genetics and lived experience became a central theme in his introspection, prompting questions about legacy, belonging, and the meaning of lineage within a monarchy that is steeped in tradition and hereditary succession. This period also exposed Harry to the challenge of reconciling personal truth with public expectation. As a prominent member of the royal family, his emotional response could not be contained within private spaces alone. Public appearances, charitable engagements, and media interactions demanded a careful calibration of emotion, revealing just enough vulnerability to maintain authenticity while preserving dignity and composure. The tension between internal struggle and external expectation was a persistent source of psychological strain, as Harry navigated the delicate balance between personal healing and public performance. Romantic and familial relationships were similarly affected. Meghan Markle, as Harry's closest confidant, became both a source of support and a participant in the emotional complexity of the situation. Their bond was tested as they jointly navigated public reaction, media scrutiny, and the private work of emotional processing. Conversations about future family planning, public engagements, and their role in the monarchy were now framed by the revelation, adding layers of deliberation, caution, and emotional negotiation. The couple's unity became a focal point for the media, casting their relationship as both a sanctuary and a battleground within the context of broader familial tension. Psychological experts analyzing Harry's journey emphasized the profound impact of discovering hidden truths about one's parentage later in life. The experience is often associated with identity crises, emotional instability, and heightened vulnerability to anxiety and depression. In Harry's case, these challenges were amplified by public visibility, the responsibilities of his titles and charitable work, and the historical weight of being part of one of the most scrutinized families in the world. Strategies for coping included structured reflection, therapy, selective media engagement, and focusing on personal achievements and meaningful connections beyond family structures. Additionally, Harry confronted moral and ethical dilemmas associated with disclosure. The decision to acknowledge the truth publicly involved weighing personal emotional needs against potential harm to relationships, public perception, and institutional stability. He grappled with questions about timing, narrative framing, and the consequences of revelation, understanding that once the secret was exposed, its ripple effects would extend far beyond his own life. Each decision regarding disclosure carried emotional and strategic weight, demanding careful deliberation and a deep awareness of both personal and public consequences. The emotional fallout extended into practical aspects of Harry's life. Decisions about residence, security, public appearances, and personal privacy were all influenced by the revelation. Trust dynamics shifted not only within the family, but also among advisors, staff, and colleagues. Previously straightforward routines became infused with complexity as every interaction was reframed in the context of new knowledge. Even mundane aspects of daily life, such as attending family gatherings or charitable functions, required recalibration, reflecting the profound and pervasive nature of emotional upheaval triggered by the revelation. In conclusion, The revelation about Harry's biological paternity triggered a cascade of emotional and personal struggles that reshaped his understanding of identity, family, and public life. The psychological toll, the renegotiation of relationships, the confrontation with grief and betrayal, and the ongoing effort to maintain composure under public scrutiny collectively illustrate the profound human impact of such a disclosure. Harry's journey underscores the complexity of reconciling personal truth with social expectation, the enduring importance of emotional support systems, and the resilience required to navigate unprecedented revelations while remaining engaged in both private and public spheres. King Charles, confronted with the news that Harry was not his biological son, experienced a multifaceted emotional response. Though he had, for decades, assumed his role as Harry's father, the revelation introduced a profound layer of complexity to that relationship. Privately, Charles grappled with feelings of shock, betrayal, and concern for the psychological well-being of his son. His initial reactions were reportedly measured, as he sought to reconcile his love for Harry with the implications of public exposure. Charles's advisors emphasized the need for careful management, recognizing that any public misstep could amplify scrutiny, invite speculation, and threaten the reputation of the monarchy. Strategic counsel urged a calm, dignified approach to maintain public composure while addressing internal family dynamics with discretion, sensitivity, and authority. Princess Diana's legacy also became a central point of reflection and concern within the family. While she had passed away decades earlier, her choices, relationships, and private affairs were thrust into the spotlight once again. Advisors debated how to contextualize her life and decisions, balancing acknowledgement of the truth with the preservation of her memory as a beloved public figure. Diana's past relationship with James Hewitt, long whispered about in media circles, suddenly assumed an undeniable relevance. The palace sought to navigate the conversation carefully, understanding that historical scrutiny could reopen wounds, spark public debate, and ignite media narratives that might complicate current family relations. Prince William, as the next in line to the throne and a central figure in the family, faced his own unique set of challenges. While the revelation did not directly implicate him, it inevitably influenced his perception of familial relationships, loyalty, and the stability of the monarchy. William's responsibilities required him to maintain a composed public demeanor while also offering support to Harry. Private family meetings became intense, structured discussions, balancing emotional acknowledgement with strategic planning. William's role involved not only sibling support, but also active participation in crafting a unified family narrative that could withstand public scrutiny without undermining the monarchy's image. Strategic responses were not limited to the immediate nuclear family. Advisors from various branches of the royal household, including communications teams, legal counsel, and senior courtiers, convened to assess potential scenarios. Crisis management protocols were reviewed and updated, emphasizing coordinated messaging, controlled leaks, and careful media engagement. The objective was to minimize public controversy while respecting the privacy and dignity of all family members. Every public statement, press release, and social media interaction was analyzed for tone, implications, and the potential to influence public perception. The monarchy's historical sensitivity to image and tradition made this process particularly critical. The goal was to navigate a personal revelation without destabilizing institutional authority. Communication strategies were a central pillar of the royal response. Internal discussions focused on whether and how to acknowledge the revelation publicly, balancing transparency with discretion. Some advisors advocated for a measured acknowledgement that would convey empathy, familial unity, and emotional authenticity, while others urged caution, fearing that any public statement might invite sensationalism, misinterpretation, or further media intrusion. Messaging considerations extended to international audiences, as the British monarchy maintains a global following. Strategic consultations included media experts, communications directors, and trusted public relations specialists, all weighing the potential fallout of each possible course of action. The impact of the revelation on royal ceremonial and traditional obligations also demanded immediate attention. Key events, including public appearances, state functions, and charitable engagements, had to be carefully re-evaluated in light of potential scrutiny. Advisors recommended adjustments to Harry's public schedule, ensuring that appearances were manageable, emotionally sustainable, and strategically timed to avoid unnecessary attention or speculation. Simultaneously, contingency plans were developed to address possible questions from journalists, political figures, and international dignitaries, with detailed scripts, briefing notes, and scenario planning sessions aimed at maintaining control over the narrative. Legal considerations became another crucial aspect of strategic responses. The revelation raised questions about inheritance rights, succession implications, and potential challenges to established protocols. While Harry remained legally recognized within the royal line due to historical precedents and formal documentation, advisors explored scenarios in which public perception or familial disputes might create challenges. Legal counsel was tasked with reviewing statutes, precedents, and internal documents to ensure that any decisions made would comply with constitutional requirements and protect the monarchy's institutional integrity. The extended royal family, including Princess and Prince Edward and various cousins, was also drawn into discussions. Each member had to navigate their personal reactions, emotional connections, and public roles. While some expressed concern for Harry's well-being, others focused on the broader implications for family cohesion and public perception. Private gatherings, consultations, and communications became forums for negotiation, reassurance, and planning. Family members were advised on messaging, expected media questions, and appropriate public demeanor, all aimed at reinforcing unity and demonstrating resilience in the face of unprecedented revelation. In tandem with internal strategies, the palace actively monitored media narratives. Analysts tracked coverage, social media sentiment, and international reporting, providing real-time assessments of public reaction. This data informed decisions about when and how to engage with journalists, issue statements, or allow controlled insights into private family life. The objective was to anticipate potential controversies, correct misinformation, and frame the conversation in a manner that balanced transparency with discretion. The monarchy's historical approach to media management emphasized precision, control, and timing, all of which were critical in navigating the fallout from the revelation. Public relations teams also advised on personal statements, charitable engagements, and interviews for both Harry and other family members. Emphasis was placed on emotional authenticity, measured vulnerability, and the careful acknowledgement of personal struggle without inviting sensationalism. Messaging frameworks highlighted themes of familial love, resilience, and unity, while consciously avoiding specifics that might inflame public debate or fuel media speculation. Every aspect of communication was meticulously planned, tested, and rehearsed, reflecting the high stakes of managing private revelation within a global spotlight. The intersection of personal and institutional interests created unique tension. Harry's emotional needs, desire for privacy, and personal identity considerations were often juxtaposed with the monarchy's need for stability, public confidence, and historical continuity. Strategic discussions involved negotiating these sometimes conflicting priorities, ensuring that Harry's personal journey could proceed without destabilizing institutional authority. Advisors sought solutions that honored personal truth while maintaining the image of a cohesive, dignified royal family capable of weathering unprecedented challenges. Relational dynamics within the palace were reshaped as a result. Trust, communication, and empathy became central pillars in family interactions, as members sought to reconcile the revelation with long-established roles and expectations. Private meetings, facilitated by senior advisors, became platforms for candid dialogue, emotional processing, and strategic alignment. The monarchy's ability to adapt to this personal and public crisis reflected a delicate balance between tradition and flexibility, authority and compassion. In conclusion, the royal family's strategic response to the revelation about Harry's parentage exemplified the intersection of personal vulnerability, institutional responsibility, and global scrutiny. From private emotional support to meticulously coordinated public messaging, every aspect of palace life was recalibrated to manage the unprecedented situation. The careful orchestration of communications, legal considerations, ceremonial adjustments, and interpersonal dynamics underscored the monarchy's capacity for resilience, strategic thinking, and preservation of institutional dignity. Amid the emotional upheaval, the family sought to maintain unity, protect individual well-being, and navigate a world watching every move, demonstrating both the complexity and the high stakes of managing a revelation that was as deeply personal as it was globally consequential. The moment the news about Prince Harry's biological parentage became public, the world erupted into a frenzy of speculation, analysis, and outright sensationalism. Media outlets across the globe scrambled to report, interpret, and contextualize the revelation, with headlines ranging from careful factual summaries to overtly dramatic proclamations designed to captivate readers and viewers alike. Social media platforms ignited almost immediately, with hashtags trending, discussion threads proliferating, and amateur analysts offering theories that range from plausible to wildly conspiratorial. The combination of the British monarchy's historical mystique, the deeply personal nature of the revelation, and the high-profile figures involved created the perfect storm for media obsession. Television networks devoted special segments to the story, often featuring panels of experts, former royal correspondents, and psychologists analyzing both Harry's reaction and the potential implications for the monarchy. Pundits debated whether the revelation would impact the line of succession, public confidence in the royal family, or the personal relationships between key members. Some suggested that the monarchy could face a crisis of legitimacy, while others argued that, historically, the institution had weathered scandals with careful management, and that this, too, could be contained. The coverage was relentless, with every detail, every past rumor, and every public appearance of Harry, Charles, William, and other family members being examined under a microscope. Newspapers printed extended features analyzing the timeline of Harry's life, highlighting moments that could be interpreted differently in light of the DNA revelation. Stories revisited Princess Diana's well-known struggles, her relationship with James Hewitt, and the whispers that had long circulated in royal circles. Tabloids, in particular, emphasized the drama, often accompanied by photos, side-by-side comparisons, and speculative commentary that implied personal betrayal, hidden secrets, and family tension. Headlines screamed about royal secrets exposed, Prince Harry's true father revealed, and monarchy in turmoil, capturing the attention of audiences eager for intrigue and scandal. Social media amplified the intensity exponentially. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok became hotbeds for discussion, speculation, and debate. Memes and videos circulated, some sympathetic to Harry, portraying him as a victim of circumstance and secrecy, while others cast a critical eye on both Diana's past decisions and the monarchy's handling of private matters. Influencers, journalists, and everyday users weighed in, often blending fact with opinion, creating a rapidly evolving narrative that was difficult to control. Public sentiment ranged from empathy for Harry to outrage at perceived deceit, with discussion threads often turning into highly charged arenas of debate. International media also played a significant role in shaping perception. Outlets in Europe, the United States, Asia, and Australia reported the story with varying degrees of emphasis and tone. Some took a more measured, analytical approach, focusing on the implications for the British monarchy and the historical context. Others leaned into the sensational, highlighting scandal, emotional drama, and the human interest angle. In the United States, the story intersected with ongoing fascination with British royalty, garnering massive viewership and sparking debates on major news programs. Coverage in countries with strong historical ties to Britain, such as Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, sparked similar public engagement, with local commentary and opinion pieces offering a mix of cultural interpretation and analysis. The public reaction was intense and multifaceted. Polls and surveys quickly revealed a division of opinion. Many expressed sympathy for Harry, framing him as a figure caught in circumstances beyond his control, deserving understanding and support. Others questioned the timing and relevance of the revelation, debating whether it should alter perceptions of the monarchy or influence historical narratives about Diana, Charles, and the royal family. Conversations extended into private circles, online forums, and even workplace discussions, reflecting the global fascination with the topic. Media outlets also explored potential consequences for royal protocol, inheritance, and succession. While legal experts emphasized that Harry remained a recognized member of the royal family with rights and privileges intact, the public narrative often focused on hypotheticals, creating a sense of uncertainty and drama. Speculation ranged from potential shifts in succession to questions about public titles, financial entitlements, and ceremonial roles. Each new article, interview, or broadcast further fueled the conversation, keeping audiences engaged and invested in following developments. Celebrity commentators, historians, and former royal aides were also brought into the media narrative. Some offered insights into the personal toll such a revelation could have on Harry, drawing parallels to past royal scandals. Others emphasized the institutional stakes, warning of reputational risk and the challenge of maintaining public trust. Analysts debated how the family might navigate future public appearances, charitable engagements, and media interactions, considering both the personal and institutional dimensions of the crisis. Public empathy toward Harry was particularly heightened by his known history of personal struggles. Coverage revisited his mental health journey, including his candid discussions about anxiety, grief, and the pressures of royal life. Psychologists and commentators framed the DNA revelation as not only a matter of lineage, but also an emotional upheaval, potentially compounding years of personal strain. Many audiences connected with this narrative, seeing Harry as a figure facing extraordinary challenges while trying to maintain dignity, privacy, and family ties under unprecedented scrutiny. The media frenzy also prompted discussions about the broader implications for monarchy-related privacy and media ethics. Some journalists and commentators questioned the appropriateness of publicizing such intimate family details, debating the balance between public interest and individual rights. The intense scrutiny raised questions about media responsibility, sensationalism, and the ethics of reporting on deeply personal matters, particularly when the subjects are living public figures. Royal social media channels, official statements, and communications teams worked diligently to manage the narrative. Carefully worded messages sought to convey composure, empathy, and support for Harry, while avoiding confirmation or denial of sensitive details. Coordinated communications aimed to strike a balance between transparency, institutional stability, and personal privacy, highlighting the monarchy's awareness of global scrutiny and its intent to navigate the crisis with dignity. Public engagement extended beyond traditional news consumption. Online communities, fan pages, and discussion groups became hubs for debate, analysis, and speculation. Viewers and readers dissected interviews, scrutinized photographs, and reviewed historical records, often drawing conclusions about relationships, family dynamics, and institutional decision-making. This participatory element intensified the media frenzy, creating a feedback loop in which public discourse influenced coverage, and coverage in turn shaped public discourse. Overall, the combination of global media coverage, social media amplification, celebrity commentary, and public discourse created a perfect storm. The revelation about Harry's biological parentage became more than a personal matter. It evolved into a cultural event, a global talking point, and a story that would dominate news cycles, water cooler conversations, and online discussions for weeks, if not months. The scale, intensity, and emotional resonance of the media frenzy reflected the complex interplay between individual experience, institutional reputation, and public fascination with royalty, highlighting the challenges of navigating privacy, truth, and perception in the modern era. The sustained attention placed Harry and the royal family under a level of scrutiny unparalleled in recent history. Every action, statement, and appearance was analyzed, interpreted, and debated, often with competing narratives vying for prominence. The result was a highly charged media environment, one in which facts, speculation, and opinion blended seamlessly, demanding careful navigation from all parties involved. For Harry, the experience was emotionally exhausting, while for the monarchy, it represented a delicate balancing act, preserving dignity, maintaining public confidence, and protecting institutional stability amid an unprecedented global spotlight. The revelation of Prince Harry's biological parentage was not just a headline. It was a seismic shift in his personal narrative, shaking the very foundation of his identity. For years, Harry had carried the weight of public expectation, personal grief, and the burden of living in the shadow of the monarchy. While the world saw a confident, composed royal navigating ceremonies, engagements, and media appearances, the internal reality was far more complex. Harry's life had been marked by a series of profound emotional challenges, beginning with the tragic loss of his mother, Princess Diana, and compounded by the relentless scrutiny of the press. Each step he took in public, each interview he gave, and each moment of personal reflection had been colored by both his familial circumstances and the expectations imposed upon him. The announcement of the DNA test confirming that King Charles was not his biological father represented a unique and unprecedented emotional challenge. For Harry, this was not merely a matter of public perception. It struck at the core of his self-understanding. Identity, family, and belonging are fundamental human needs, and for Harry, the revelation reopened old wounds, forcing him to reconcile his love and respect for the man who raised him with the biological truth of his parentage. It was an emotional paradox, a mixture of grief, relief, confusion, and anger, all swirling together as he navigated the personal and public dimensions of the crisis. Psychologists and experts familiar with royal family dynamics emphasized that Harry's emotional response was both natural and complex. Being told, or even realizing, that one's parentage differs from what was long assumed can trigger profound psychological effects. These include questions of self-worth, loyalty, and belonging, and can exacerbate existing vulnerabilities such as anxiety, depression, or identity confusion. For Harry, these challenges were magnified by the fact that his life had unfolded under global observation. Every emotional reaction risked public interpretation. Every personal struggle became a matter of media speculation, and every decision he made was analyzed in real time by millions of people. The emotional toll was enormous. The announcement also forced Harry to confront a lifetime of rumors and whispered conversations. Throughout his adolescence and adulthood, there had been hints, stories, and conjectures surrounding his parentage. While some were dismissed as tabloid speculation, others were quietly acknowledged within private circles. The confirmation of the DNA test rendered all previous speculation validated, in some cases opening old wounds and in others providing clarity that had long been elusive. This duality created an emotional landscape of conflicting feelings, where relief and validation were intertwined with betrayal and heartbreak. In addition to the immediate emotional shock, Harry faced the challenge of reconciling his relationship with his father, King Charles. The bond between parent and child is intricate, shaped by love, shared experiences, and social expectations. Harry had grown up under the guidance, mentorship, and sometimes strict oversight of Charles, forming a complex mixture of admiration, dependency, and occasional resentment. Learning that Charles was not his biological father did not erase those shared experiences, yet it inevitably reframed them, raising difficult questions about lineage, inheritance, and familial loyalty. Harry's emotions were further complicated by his desire to maintain decorum, protect family dignity, and navigate the intense media scrutiny that accompanied each revelation. Support systems became critically important during this period. Meghan Markle, as Harry's spouse and closest confidant, played a central role in providing emotional grounding. Their partnership, already tested by public scrutiny, media intrusion, and relocation, became a crucial space for private discussion and mutual support. Friends, counselors, and therapists were also integral, offering professional guidance to help Harry process grief, anger, and identity confusion. The interplay between personal resilience and external support was essential for navigating the psychological impact of such a life-altering revelation. Public reactions further shaped Harry's emotional journey. While many expressed empathy and support, others engaged in criticism, conspiracy theories, or outright dismissal of his experiences. Navigating these public perceptions required careful emotional regulation, as every statement, social media post, or appearance could trigger commentary that might either affirm or undermine his feelings. Harry's ability to manage this duality, personal reality versus public perception, demonstrated not only resilience, but also the immense psychological burden of living under global scrutiny while facing deeply personal revelations. The revelation also prompted a re-evaluation of Harry's sense of purpose and identity. Throughout his life, he had been deeply committed to charitable causes, veteran support, mental health advocacy, and public service. Understanding his biological lineage did not diminish these commitments, but added layers of personal reflection. Questions of legacy, authenticity, and familial alignment became intertwined with his ongoing mission to support causes he believed in, highlighting the intersection of personal identity and public responsibility. Harry had to reconcile who he was biologically with who he had been socially, psychologically, and emotionally throughout his life. Harry's relationship with his siblings, particularly Prince William, was also affected. While public appearances might have projected unity, private conversations were laden with complexity. William, raised under the same institutional and familial structures, now had to navigate not only his own emotional responses, but also support his brother while managing his position in the monarchy. The emotional dynamics between the brothers were reframed, as conversations and interactions now carried the weight of profound personal revelations and shifting family narratives. Additionally, the revelation intersected with Harry's understanding of his late mother's life and decisions. Princess Diana's struggles, romantic choices, and the pressures she faced within the monarchy had long been a source of reflection for Harry. The confirmation of his biological parentage invited further contemplation of her intentions, her experiences, and the challenges she navigated in maintaining both privacy and public responsibility. For Harry, reconciling the past with the present involved deep emotional labor, integrating knowledge about Diana's choices with his current experiences and understanding of identity. Coping mechanisms became a critical aspect of Harry's daily life. Engaging in therapy, open communication with trusted confidants, structured routines, and time spent in meaningful activities provided essential tools for managing the emotional weight of the revelation. Reflection, journaling, and mindfulness practices allowed him to process complex emotions while maintaining functionality in public and private life. Each coping strategy served to stabilize his emotional state, enabling him to navigate the multifaceted challenges arising from this extraordinary revelation. The personal struggle was also interwoven with broader societal implications. As a public figure, Harry's emotional journey resonated with countless individuals experiencing identity crises, family revelations, or profound personal upheaval. His openness about mental health challenges, emotional vulnerability, and resilience provided a narrative that many could connect with, highlighting the universality of human emotional experience even amidst extraordinary circumstances. Harry's journey became a lens through which the public could examine questions of identity, family, and emotional resilience, making his personal story both deeply private and widely relatable. As days turned into weeks, Harry's emotional journey evolved. Initial shock and disbelief gave way to reflection, planning, and, eventually, a cautiously optimistic sense of self-understanding. Support from Meghan, family allies, and professional counselors facilitated this evolution, helping Harry navigate the labyrinth of emotions tied to his identity, family relationships, and public life. The experience, though harrowing, also offered opportunities for growth, self-discovery, and a redefinition of personal boundaries and priorities. In conclusion, Prince Harry's emotional journey following the confirmation of his biological parentage was profound, multifaceted, and deeply human. It encompassed grief, identity re-evaluation, familial complexity, public scrutiny, and personal resilience. Through support systems, coping mechanisms, and reflective practices, Harry worked to integrate this life-altering information into his understanding of self, relationships, and purpose. The journey was not linear, nor devoid of challenges, but it highlighted the intersection of personal experience and public life, demonstrating the extraordinary emotional fortitude required to navigate such revelations under the world's gaze. The revelation of Prince Harry's biological parentage did not just impact him personally. It sent shockwaves throughout the British royal family, igniting a crisis that rippled through Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, and private family estates alike. Royals, accustomed to managing public perception with precision and maintaining a facade of unity, were suddenly confronted with a situation that challenged not only their internal dynamics, but also the very foundation of the monarchy. The traditional hierarchy, deeply rooted in bloodlines and succession, now faced a dilemma that had never been formally anticipated. This revelation, while private in nature, could not remain contained, given Harry's prominence and the inevitable scrutiny of the press and public. Within the family, initial reactions varied significantly, reflecting the complex web of relationships, loyalties, and emotions. Some members approached the news with a mixture of disbelief and denial, struggling to reconcile the facts with their long-held perceptions of family lineage. Others expressed concern about the potential fallout, recognizing that the disclosure could undermine the monarchy's stability, influence public trust, and provide fodder for international media outlets that thrived on sensationalism. Behind closed doors, heated discussions ensued, balancing considerations of protocol, emotional support for Harry, and the broader implications for succession and royal legitimacy. King Charles, as the individual directly implicated in the revelation, faced a particularly delicate situation. Beyond the personal emotional impact, he had to navigate the public perception of his role as monarch and father. Charles's advisors, legal counsel, and private aides were immediately engaged in crisis management, evaluating statements, preparing responses, and anticipating media inquiries. The king's approach combined a need for compassion toward his son with an awareness of the potential political and social ramifications of the news. Private meetings between Charles and senior family members reflected a tense atmosphere where every word, gesture, and plan had to be measured with precision. Queen Camilla, as the consort, also played a crucial role in internal deliberations. Her position required balancing support for her husband, concern for family unity, and public perception management. Camilla's interactions with other family members became increasingly strategic, as she sought to maintain a sense of cohesion while preparing for the inevitable public scrutiny that would follow. Privately, she faced her own emotional reactions, grappling with the implications of the revelation and the complex interpersonal dynamics it triggered within the palace walls. Prince William's response was equally significant, though deeply nuanced. While he shared a strong bond with Harry as his elder brother, William also bore the weight of his own position in the monarchy and his public role as heir apparent. Balancing empathy for Harry with his responsibilities toward the institution and its legacy created a challenging emotional landscape. Discussions between William and other senior royals involved careful navigation, weighing the need to support his brother against concerns about potential disruption to the family's image and the monarchy's authority. William's advisors, often cautious and detail-oriented, emphasized measured responses, avoiding public statements until the internal consensus could be reached.